Hello and welcome. So we're just getting started here at Kris's house. We're going to be having a special night as we talk about some great announcements. Just want to welcome everyone who's joining us online live. This is so exciting. So tonight's going to be fairly informal. So just sit back and enjoy, relax. And there's the chat bar in which you can communicate and engage. So to make sure everything's working here. All right, perfect. Okay. All right, perfect. We're just going to need to prop that door open.
If you're going to lean back, we must do the
All right. Awesome. Well, super exciting. Kris is going to be down here in just a moment. Just really want to thank you guys for coming. Especially being Kris and I we've been deep in the laboratory. Like mad scientists, like working talking our boss to take over the world. So no, but really, we just wanted to gather just a few close friends, a few new friends, and be able to just enjoy this evening together, answer a few questions, share some things we're doing, and just really have an opportunity to hang out and talk about this movement that is happening right now, the movement of transformation. We've got some people that came from all over the place, including David. Where do you come from, David? Where do you call home now?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, but Florida, Austin, San Francisco, now.
All right, yeah, so David's one of our people that we're trying to bring into the tribe, trying to enroll them to come join us in the that's happening here. So, yes, you're waiting. Tell me, like how dramatic you want me to make it. You want me to do my like announcer voice when you come in? I'll do it.
Do like a break. Really just talk them up.
Yeah.
Come on, man. See the price.
I see that.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens. So, so yeah, our intention tonight is just to create like this experience and kind of talk about a little bit about our journey, and then just also another part of our intention tonight is to talk to you about the things that inspire you most about your journey of personal growth. Like a lot of what Kris and I are developing and doing is just we're driven by this question, simply, how can we serve people? How can we serve people? To me, this is the most important question that drives my business. How can I serve people at a higher level? And that question leads to a lot of different things. Right? The question leads to, okay, how can I be a better facilitator? How can I develop my skills and talents? How can I, create events and experiences that are more impactful and more powerful? How can we provide a better customer experience? And working with Kris over the last couple months has pushed me out of my comfort zone. How many of you have experienced Kris and know that he's good at pushing you out of your comfort zone? Right, this is one of Kris's greatest gifts. Is he has this energy and this momentum, this fire, and this passion that is all about I don't know how else to describe it. It's just like this epic energy, like creation and production. And really, what it's done for me is I've been doing transformation for the last 8 years. How many, just by a show of hands, how many of you have ever thought about either being a coach or mentor or a speaker? I remember for me when it first began, I just loved learning. That was like when I would go to a 3-day workshop or seminar, like there was a part of me that felt like I was doing something. The people I would connect with and just the depth that I'd be able to experience people with was so different than what I experienced in normal life. If you know what I'm talking about. But there was something that allowed me during those events to tap into and see a little bit more of my potential, to discover who I was at my core. And there was something so liberating about that. I remember I would go to these events and I'd be at a very stale, very stuck place in my life, and all of a sudden I'd go to this 3-day workshop, and it's like my mind would be lit on fire, and my heart would be like burning, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, and it would like activated like this creative energy. And so I became a, I guess, a seminar addict. Right? I just loved learning, and I couldn't get enough. And so during the years between, I think the seminar I went to was in Florida in like 2005, and over the next 3 years, I'm sure I spent close to $100,000 going to workshops and seminars, like pursuing, like at that time it was real estate investing. And I was just like, I couldn't get enough. And what was profound is I always noticed that the more I invest in myself, the more my business grew. The more I invested in myself, the more I felt confident in who I was, and it was just really amazing to watch that journey. And I also learned that there was this perception that I had that if I would get to a certain place, then I would be fixed, right? that if I would just, go to that workshop, then I'll be done, because then I'll have it all figured out. Like there was some like little illusion in my mind that there was a finish line. Anyone ever feel that way? Anyone ever wished it was that way? Yeah. But yeah, and what I discovered was something different. It's just like, no matter how much I grew, no matter how much I evolved, no matter how much I stretched, there was one of my good friends, Gerald, he says, new level, new devil, right? At the next level, there's a new challenge that's there to open it up wider and stretch you even bigger. And there's a new experience to teach you what you need to know, and that's it. So I just made a simple commitment. And it was a commitment that, one of my mentors, Tony Robbins, talks about a lot, and he calls this CANI, which is C-A-N-I, constant and never-ending improvement. Like this, and what I realized is this is a core belief of all top users, of all people that are living epic lives, and all people that are constantly growing. The learners are ones that are constantly searching. Many of you have probably heard me say this quote. This is a quote by Eric Hoffer that really, I think, epitomizes, all of us. And what he says is this: he says, "In seasons of change, the learners will inherit the earth, while the learned will find themselves beautifully equipped to deal with a world that no longer exists." And I love that because it's so true. Like we're in a season of change. And some of you are experiencing that personally in your life. Maybe you're experiencing a change in work, or a change in employment, or a change in your focus or your purpose. Maybe some of you are experiencing changes in your relationships, and you're growing, expanding, you're releasing the old, embracing the new, or you're just shifting within your existing relationship, but you're experiencing change. Maybe some of you are experiencing that in terms of your body, your health, and all of these different aspects of life that you were constantly changing. And then you look at the world. How many of you recognize that our country and the world is changing pretty fast? And this is where it becomes critical for us to be these constant learners, to be the learners that will inherit the world. Because there are a lot of people, and how many of you, just by a show of hands, know that there's a lot of people that aren't really open to learning, right? They just want things to stay the same. And regardless of how much things change, they're like resisting that change because they have their little comfort zone, which they want to keep. So this idea of CNI, this idea of constant never-ending improvement, really, for me, began to embody who I was being and this thirst for knowledge and growth. And I think that all of us, every one of you here, like I look at you and I see each of you as a leader, each of you as someone that is part of this front of this movement, of conscious creativity, moving forward and creating these events. And so I think it becomes critical for all of us to figure out, okay, how can we grow faster? How can we extend? How can we lead our own movements? How can we lead and live our purpose in life? For me, what that looked like is in about 2008, 2009, I remember one of my friends, his name's Roger Swan. If any of you are coming on Saturday to the event that's happening, there's an event happening, and there's a bunch of really powerful mentors. Duncan is going to be speaking. Roger Swan's going to be there. One of the other mentors, Bill Walsh, who's a phenomenal business leader, is going to be there. And Stephanie Davis is going to be there. So there's a lot of really powerful leaders. Roger Swan played this really critical role. I think many of you have experienced people that step into your life and they just drop a single idea in your mind. They just ask a question or help you see something different. But that one person becomes this huge catalyst for a huge new direction. I think about this story of this man who used to work at this railroad, and he was talking about these switch lines, these little 2-inch pieces of steel that redirect trains. He was talking about how while he was working there was a train that was headed from something like that from New York to LA, and somehow the train got lost, and they couldn't figure out where it went. And they couldn't figure out where the train had gone. And they realized, they finally tracked it down, and the train was in New Orleans, while it should have been in New Orleans. And we're trying to figure out what had happened, like how did the train end up in such a different place than what they had planned. And what had happened was this little 2-inch piece of steel was turned 45 degrees in a different direction than it should have been, and the train ended up in a different place. Makes sense? And we just talked about the importance of these like little switch points, these little moments, these little opportunities that shift our direction altogether. And we don't really know when those can happen. Like for some of you, maybe today's going to be one of those times where an idea like seeps into your brain, or someone have a conversation, you just make a decision, and it's just that like little switch point that might not seem significant at the time. But then you look back 5-10 years from now and you realize, oh my gosh, that was the moment that I did. That was the moment that I decided to pursue my purpose or do something different. You just make this little shift, little changes. Sometimes it's just little changes that make a difference. Well, this man, Roger Swan, as we were speaking, he was this real estate guru. He was a speaker, and I really looked up to him. He was at one of the seminars he was doing. And I was just a student. I was just on my path, and I was speaking to him in the hall after, and he was getting to know me a little bit. And he asked me a question, and the question was simply, "So Gerald, when are you going to come up with your own product? When are you going to share your message?" And it was such a simple question, and automatically my brain, guess what it said? It's like, what? Whoa! You got the wrong guy. Like, I don't have anything to share. What would I say? Why would anyone ever listen to me? Right? These are like the inner voices that are going on inside my mind. Like, who am I? Like I see these mentors up on the stage, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they've got it figured out, right? They're the experts. I'm the student. Somehow, we planted that seed in my mind. And I immediately, like, my brain was trying to reflect it. I think many of you have experienced this. Like, when something like connects with your soul purpose, like in a deep way, somehow like the seed like seeps in through the cracks, you know, of concrete beliefs, and somehow gets down into that soft there. About 2 weeks later, I remember waking up with when it was 2 o'clock in the morning. 2 o'clock in the morning idea where you're like, right, and I couldn't sleep. I couldn't, like, my brain would not turn off. And in my mind, I started concocting a vision for this event that I wanted to put on. That's based on I would do. And I would invite all of these different mentors to come, you know, share their message. It was so far outside my mind, so beyond anything I've ever done before. And but it was there, and it was just like, all right, like, I know if I don't do it now, if I bury this now, like, I'm going to kill this off. So I decided, all right, let's do it. Let's see what this is. So I started putting together this vision for this movement. It was called an investor summit. And it was around real estate investing, but it was a core part of personal development. Had a bunch of other really powerful personal development. That was really what it had. All I knew that we needed, like, the specific, like, strategic skills to be successful. I knew that at our core, unless we grow as individuals, there's no way for our relationships to grow. Unless we, like, all of our experience in our external world is all a reflection of how much we family. So I knew that in terms of these events, and I didn't see this in many events that I went to. I saw a lot of, like, strategy and this, I do this, and this, but I would also notice that most people would fail. Why? Because they weren't expanding as individuals. You can give someone the tools, but if they don't know how to use them, if they don't know how to get themselves pick up with a hammer, you know, it's not going to do anything good. So I really felt passionate about doing that, but I didn't feel like I had enough. So it's funny because at the time I was just like, I'm just going to hire someone else to do the MC. I'm just going to do the marketing. I'm just going to create it. But I've noticed this over and over again where sometimes we create this plan and have this idea, and then sometimes God steps in and has a different plan. Who notices this? Right? Sometimes God has an entirely different plan for our life than we did. And I think somehow God knew that he needed to nudge me onto the path that I'm on. And so what that looked like is the guy that I had hired for my MC, he'd back out. And I was trusting him. And I was so nervous about speaking in front of people. Like, it terrified me. You know, like, it really, like, got the attention and, like, awkward for me. I was so afraid of judgment and all these other things. And all these stories about this. But I was in that position. And I remember there was a moment on the third day of that event where I was just on stage and I was just sharing, just opening my heart. And I had heard from person after person after person how much those stories transformed their life, how inspired they were, how amazing connections they had had, how much they had grown. And it was really, really humbling to know that I had been able to be a part of this experience. And I remember I was standing on stage and sharing how that event was put together. I remember looking out in the audience, this moment of total connection. I just started bawling. You've been my most probably seen it. I just felt so much love. I was just like, I was calling, I was crying, I was feeling all over myself. And there wasn't a dry eye in the audience. Like, they all felt it. It was at that moment that I realized that this is what I needed to come to work. And I lost so much. I think I lost like $45,000. And it would have been really easy for me to say, oh my gosh, that doesn't work, that wasn't worth it, that was stupid. But it was because of that one moment. Because that moment of total connection with my audience. Or I could really see them and they could see me, and really feeling like, all right, this is the game. This is something that matters. I've been doing research investing, all these things, but that was empty compared to this moment. In this moment, I felt like, I don't know how else to describe it. Like I felt like it, God's hand. I felt like I could be a conduit for something much bigger than me. And it was so much more fun. So even though I had lost so much money, there was a moment that I was like, okay, I'm going to do this after. And so that put me on this path. And that path led me through a lot of different companies, a lot of partnerships. And about a year and a half later, 2 years later, I was in my turning. I lost everything. I was over $500,000 debt, closure, and totally deflated, and trying to figure how to make this work. But once again, it's God stepping in with this little switch point, this little transition to say, okay, you do something like that. And when we go through those experiences, we think, oh my gosh, this sucks. Like, God, why me? Why would you do this to me? Like, I've worked so hard. But then we look back, like years further ahead, and I'm like, oh my gosh, thank you, God. Thank you for having all this property for us. Thank you so much for that. Thank you for turning that switch on in my life, because it created a different opportunity than I would have taken. It was about that time that I met one of my other mentors, like Gerald, and we made a decision. Well, he told me about one of his partners in Kris, and someone that he was close friends with. And I was like, oh, that sounds like a cool guy. Right? I didn't really think much of it like him, but he talked about how impressed he was about Kris's ability to build businesses and all the things that Kris was doing. I said, okay. And then about 6 months later, I was at an event in Las Vegas, and I ran into Kris and a business partner. This was probably in 2000. It was early 2010. And once again, it's like these little moments that you don't recognize how significant they can be. You just think, oh, it's just another day, just another person. And you don't realize that you just met someone that is going to fundamentally change everything. You don't realize how your paths are going to intertwine and how much that person can do. I remember meeting him, I was like, oh wow, this dude's cool. He's got it figured out. Like he's got some big things. Great. But it didn't really think much of it. But about 3 or 4 months later, no, I'm not even sure if it was that long. But I had this other idea. I was like, well, I want to put on an event in Utah. I've never done an event in Utah before. I want to do an event in Utah, and I want to see if Kris will come. I really want to show Kris what I can do in the event, because I was interested in seeing if it could be some sort of so we ended up getting him and Marcy Lockett, and Marcy Lockett is, and another one named Heather Matter, and Gerald. They're all really great powerhouses, and we all shared a similar conversation around soul purpose. What it means to live your soul purpose, what it means to live your full mission, why you're here, and how can you be a soul purpose business owner? How can you have a profitable business that's driven by purpose, driven by contribution, driven by you sharing your gifts with the world? And so we all had this conversation. I had this idea that was put on the event like a prosperity. So that's the event that I invited Kris to come. And once again, it's like these little switches. I was kind of done with the real estate game, but this conversation of purpose and entrepreneurship really was at my core. And I was living in Florida at the time, but I remember during that event, there was something so magical about this building. And my wife at the time, she had come out with me to that event. And it was so powerful. And I remember getting this like clear message from God. So clear. And I remember talking to my wife on the evening of the second night. I was like, hey, honey, I've got something I need to talk to you about. She just looked at me and she's like, okay. So Like she had got that same message, like, okay, we need to move our family from Florida, we need to move to Utah. And once again, it's just like these little switch points, this little moment of, oh, God's pushing me in a different direction. And all of you, you have these moments in life that radically shift, right? Those little decisions, these little things that when you first step into it, you have no idea where that leads. But somehow the puzzle pieces start to fit together. It was about that same time that I felt inspired to do this event called Live Big. So I did my first Live Big event in 2010. And I went through evolution after evolution after evolution. The first partner on that was kind of DJ Boyd, and a partner with Gerald, and my good friend Tony Wilson. So altogether over the last 5 years, we've done 20 of these really big things. And they've all just been, in some ways, I had this realization as I was doing these events. In some ways, I knew that these events, like I would have people come to these events and they would talk about how drastically their life had changed since they last did big events. And I saw people whose businesses had grown and exploded. Like one of my friends who's like, what's your business? And I met him like 2 years later and says, I don't know what it was that. I was good, but now I make $40,000 a month and things are so good and things are so much. And I've seen people with relationships come back together. I've seen people come back after going to the big months before and see them like shedding a ton of weight. And it's like so humbling. And I like get the fact that when we're facilitating some experiences like this, we're not the ones creating it. Like I take no credit for creating that change and that transformation that they do in partnership with God. But I feel so honored to be able to have this special little role, to be that catalyst that maybe helps them shift that little piece of it. But as powerful as the transformation that the audience experienced, for me, there was a part that I realized I was doing it intentionally. Like it was my cocoon for me. It was my cocoon for me. I just happened to be super grateful that I got 6 years of being new friends with other events and to explore this with. And there was times where we would try different processes, do different things. And I remember as I was going through my divorce and I'd been through so much transformation. And I remember there came a point where I wasn't doing it anymore because I didn't feel like I was in space. Right? I was just deep in my own and when I finally emerged and was coming out, it was like, okay, I'm ready to teach, I'm ready to share. There's so much inside me. Remember when I went to go put on my next Live Big, I sat down and started preparing. And we just got this message from guys saying, don't prepare. Don't make it too much. Don't have a script. Just show up and just see what happens. And it was like, whoa, right? Are you sure about this guy? Yeah. And so I was like, I just trusted. And what unfolded was this incredible space of connection, this feeling led through this event and doing processes I'd never even thought of before. And watching this community grow and evolve. And it was like God was like shifting and shaping me and teaching me through that process. And it was so powerful and so humbling to watch that occur. And so there was a period of time, like a year or two, where Live Big was a completely organic process. Like it was like we had no idea what was going to happen anytime. And it was super exciting, and my team was like, "Oh my gosh, what's going to happen?" Because they would have no idea. But it was kind of a metamorphosis. If many of you are familiar with like how caterpillars are formed, right? I mean, how butterflies are sort of shaped with caterpillars. But there's a point where they go into cocoon, and everything that they once knew gets dissolved. It's like the entire caterpillar, like literally melts down. If you were to cut open a cocoon in the middle of metamorphosis, it would just be goop, right? You would just see like gel. You wouldn't see a caterpillar, you wouldn't see a butterfly, it's just gel. So don't do that. Don't do that. But part of transformation is this. Part of transformation is recognizing in order for us to truly transform, it's different than self-improvement. Self-improvement is taking what we know and growing upon. Transformation happens by forgetting or releasing what we think we have known to embrace something better. Does this make sense? Like there's a releasing that's required in order to truly transform. A releasing of what we believed was true and it simply wasn't. Releasing of an identity that you chose for yourself when you were an unconscious little child. As this wounded little kid, you developed this idea perspective of who you were and who you weren't. In order for you to become who you must be, you must release that idea and all of the limiting beliefs that are attached to it. This is the role of transformation. In order for your relationship to become what it could be, you need to release what it was. In order for your business to evolve and become what it could be, you need to abandon all of the things you were tied to in the past, because what you know has gotten you right there. And how many of you, just by a show of hands, know that there's something better in store for you? Right? That requires you to release the limits that have tied you down and truly become limitless. And so for me, during the process of the last couple of years, it's just been this organic do it, and it's been like super powerful and super fulfilling. And I'm so grateful for all my tribe that's come and experienced with that. But it's helped create shape and structure and an awareness and a capacity within me that I didn't have years ago. And God has this miraculous way of creating these like full circles in my life, where a seed was planted years ago and then it turns and shifts into understanding how that was significant. So that leads me to December of last year, when this guy that I had met years ago, that we had a brief interaction with a couple of years, he invited me to come to his office, and his name is Kris. Heard this guy before? So he invited me to come to his office, and he started sharing with me the vision that he has for this mentoring network that he's developing, and he started bouncing ideas, and for me it was a really interesting experience, where as I was sitting with him, there's this point where sometimes I feel like God like literally steps down and he pushes us out to the side, and he just gives us words to speak, right? He says, okay, I need you to share this. And so I felt that. I felt like this deep connection with this. I felt like this inspiration in what he was leading and what he was doing. And I also felt like maybe like there was some specific things that I got to share with him to support him. And once again, like when we have these moments, it's like this little so we don't know where that will lead or what will become of that. As Kris launched the mentoring network, and it became like this apex of his creation, of everything he's been developing over the last 7, 8, 10 years, strong growth. It became evident that this was a movement that was going to impact so many lives, and it was something that I really wanted to be part of. So I was like, yes, I want this. And I wanted it for my own financial reasons, because I've never built a passive income in my business before. I was like, I want that. I did it from a purpose reason where I knew that I needed to get my message out to people. And I did it for this reason. Kris is an epic individual. He is someone that inspires me to be a better person, to be a better leader. And I realized that I wanted to create proximity to her. I knew that by being, even in the sphere of influence, even around Kris in any way, I knew that it would empower me to be more bold and more fearless in my life. And Kris shared with me how he felt inspired to make it a big part of this experience where everyone was coming to mentor him. There was some really divine inspiration that was happening there, and so over the last 2 weeks, Kris has come and helped facilitate it as well. I'm going to have him share the next part of the story, but what's happened over the last 2 months has really kind of awoken this giant within both of us, like this inspiration. There is something powerful in what you're doing, and a real sense that this is a seed of what will be massive movement and impact. Many people at the deep level, and a few people at an extraordinarily fundamental level. And so, without any other ado,
Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for Mr. Christopher Kris!
So, how many of you feel like you got to a place in your life where you started to get up to something big? Like you felt like you were approaching this precipice where you were going to start expressing like your greatest gift. And then when you got there, you found out that you felt tiny. And that it actually wasn't a full expression of every part and ounce of who you are. Can anyone identify at all with that? Okay, for those of you not putting your hands up, you just feel like you're like miles from the precipice. On September 2nd, I'm coming out of a 35-year decade. And for the very first time, I will be sharing the most authentic version of myself with the world. I pushed myself as a young man out of fear, and lack, and not feeling good enough to retire at the age of 26. And when I did that, people started to say, Kris, he's this real estate guru. And I tried it on. My ego tried it on and thought that was kind of interesting. And, being the money guy, pretty cool to know how to make money. Total mismatch with who I authentically am. So I put a company together. And this company now has done nearly $500 million worth of real estate for people in the last 5-6 years. And there I'm kind of branded like, I'm the founder that started this company. And, I've created 8 millionaires, and I've got people on their way to achieving different levels of success. Certainly, like pissing off a small percentage of my clients. But people look at me a certain way. Then 5 years ago, I just got sick and tired of being fat and went through a whole different level of mentoring. And even a year and a half ago, got on stage at 5% body fat in front of 1,000 people to judge my naked body. And in that experience, I learned that's not who I am. And so I've always felt so close to finally getting to that moment where I was me. I was like perfect me. And it's never quite happened yet. I just removed in the last 2 months my greatest and my biggest barrier, which was stepping away from everything I've created to let it take on a life of its own and create itself at an entirely new level. And my team has proven in the last 2 months how incredibly capable they are. And the space was created for me to go from caterpillar. I'm past the gooey DNA stage. But I can tell you that on September 2nd, what will emerge is not a butterfly. That would be a very soft representation. I want to share with you one of the most sacred moments in my life. I'm 26. I had just retired. The day before I drove my 6 Series BMW for the last time to work. I brought with me an empty box. And I was only there about 20 minutes. I asked my boss for a ludicrous raise, which I knew he would never do. And that was the way that I fired my boss. I hope you have a cool story. And I was in this euphoric celebration mode because I had taken lessons and mentors and wife support and family and found a way to become totally independent of a big system. And when I retired, this was my home. I remember waking up that day. If you were to walk into my master bedroom, we have an entire wing of the house. And it's a beautiful room. I've got my own office area, kitchen area. It's just, it's like one of my favorite places. It was like my own home temple I got to build. It feels like a sanctuary. In fact, nobody's allowed in there practically, except for my children. I keep the door most of that. Very sacred place. I remember though, the very first morning I woke up in there, it didn't feel that way yet. It felt strange to wake up in a new house. You ever have that? Well, I remember waking up on that day I would quit my job. And I remember looking at the double coffered ceilings and the tray lighting and the beautiful 8-inch woodwork. And it was just so beautiful. The Venetian plaster, the chandeliers, the crystals hanging off of it. And I would turn my head and I looked out the window and thought, wow, this happened. It's totally magical. But the big experience was the very next day. I sat down in my office. And by the way, why do you build an office? I thought it was to work. Not had much of that experience. So the very next day I woke up, I went into my office, and I'm just sitting there and admiring the red plaster that I picked, the Venetian plaster for the walls, and picking the frames and paintings that I wanted to put there. And the desk was just handcrafted, handmade, resilient hand-carved wood on the ground, beautiful built-in cabinets. I'm just admiring it all. I thought, okay, I don't have a job. This is the office. So something should happen now, right? And I received my first of many downloads, revelations about my life. And I'll share something with you. The day you no longer prostitute your time for money. The day you stop building another vision. The day you step out of that space and even into the unknown is a day where nature pours a vacuum and you will start receiving incredible amounts of information. That's my experience with someone powerful enough to leverage the laws of manifesting and creation to get away from a job. My life began when I no longer had a job. I don't even want to share my real feelings of how I feel about people that allow themselves to be in this crazy modern slave trade where they know they don't like it, but they know the next day they're going to show up. And they do it for a small paycheck. So they can struggle and lack and not have enough and have excuses and argue with their spouse and never take the trips and fight. And it's like they do that every day. And it's just like, it's so crazy. It's like, holy hell, you're going to die. Like, you're mortal. We're all dying. Like, every day you're dying. Like, that's what you want to do with your life? What a sellout. Like, that's crazy. It's insane. It's easy for me to see that on the side. Either die than go back. It's just so small. Sitting down, enjoying this euphoric moment, trying to figure out what to do. And this download that I allowed was very clear. I pulled out my piece of paper. I drew a circle. I divided it into 4 quadrants. They represented the 4 quadrants of life. And in a flash, I saw myself in groups of people, teaching them what I had learned to manifest my freedom. Except I saw things that I did not yet know. And I also saw things I was not capable of teaching. And so I thought this must be a tomorrow thing. In fact, when I hired Gerald for a year, it was because I thought it was time. So premature. Not fully digested. Or just digested. It's not ready to poop it out. Now let's go with gestation. Babies. I wasn't ready to poop it out. So I'm sitting there and I get this vision and I am blown away because all of a sudden it's like that thing I did in my life where I'm like, oh, whatever that was, and I don't even quite comprehend it, that is who I am. Like that is what I get to be and experience. And for the last several years, as my company's gotten going, I've started experimenting, putting on events. Deep down inside, receiving knowledge, wisdom, information, and experience and processes that I was not permitted to share. Until September 2nd. I have been permitted full access to create an experience with Gerald and a few choice other individuals, where over a 3-day period of time, we are going to unleash a level of transformation that you cannot find on the planet because it is our brand. And it is me being authentically me. Do you know what I had to do to position myself to be able to have this? Had to grow my company big enough so that I could hire presidents, CEOs, executive directors, and people all smarter than me so that they would literally say, Kris, go home. I was almost offended for a minute. The other day I was in a meeting. I hadn't been in one for like 3 weeks and I'm at the office. And they're like, oh, there's Kris on his PDA. He doesn't know in this meeting we don't use those. And, oh, Kris, you came in 2 minutes late. The door's supposed to be locked, but you own the place, so come on in. And I'm sitting there, and they're giving out instructions, and I'm just witnessing all that's happening. In some respects, feeling so disconnected from it all. And they just told me to go home. It's like the 4th time in 3 months I keep trying to reintegrate into the office, and they keep sending me out. I've worked very closely with my business partner and created a space of permission to do this. I have not been permitted to create what I will share September 2nd for 7 years. Because I made a commitment to my business partner for something to, I'll use the word now, gestate. We just launched 2 days ago in 7 other countries an opportunity that in 12 months will be in 156. We launched an app. We're the first free premium company, home-based business, to offer people thousands of dollars for free for downloading an app to go through a simple upgrade system. And I've got people right now racing. I've got people around the world signing up for this. This thing is hauling. This thing is moving. And it does not need me in that role. It needs me in a different role. So 2 months ago, I got with Gerald, and I made an invitation. And I was nervous. I hardly get nervous. But I was nervous. And in fact, it took me 2 meetings to really actually authentically express myself. Remember, I'm still in cocoon. September 2nd, I'm not. And I get with Gerald and I say, Gerald, here comes the sales pitch. Gerald, I took my 4-year, 3-day Conscious Creator Life workshop, walking on hot burning coals, jumping out of trees, teaching the 7 laws of manifesting, and I just killed it. And I love it. I wrote a book about it. I love this. To make room, something has to die to make room for something new. It can't be a metamorphosis. It's new. And it took me a couple of meetings to get the guts to say, will you join with me as partners? Let go of live big to create something entirely new at the heart of this massive growing organization for people truly committed to transformation. You know why that's important to me? Because even now, many of you in this room, you're not even at 10% of where you would need to be to actually become a multimillionaire, step into your greatest glory, rocking your business beyond what you can comprehend, healing relationships, finding love. Like, you're just not ready. And I respect it and I get it. Transformation is a numbers game like nothing else. For every 100 people that say, Kris, I want to work with you and Gerald and I'm going to go all the way, 99 of them are false. They can speak the words, but the commitment isn't actually there. They actually are okay sitting on the nail. They're okay bleeding because they don't perceive that they're bleeding to death. They're okay eating one more cupcake, knowing that they are defiling their body in that moment, sinning against their spirit, higher self, sacred self, who they are, and their life doesn't hurt enough. And in life, There are those that must be compelled to change, or those that choose in. Most have to put on 130 pounds and get to near divorce and then say, I'm ready. Speaking of just one dimension.